Today, I will record my very short chapter in the book, The Stolen Daughters of Chibok, edited by my dear friend and sister, Dr. Aisha Muhammed Oyebode, the CEO of Murtala Muhammed Foundation. It's gratifying that this book has eventually been published because Aisha has been working on it for quite a few years. The reason why it's particularly joyful for me to see the book in print is that both Aisha and myself and other sisters in Nigeria have been engaged in advocacy for the rescue of our Chibok girls who were abducted from their school in Chibok on April 14, 2014. And it's sad that 10 years after this abduction, there's still over 100 girls in Boko Haram captivity, as well as thousands of Nigerian women and girls whose names are not known, whose stories are not told, and who are equally constrained as well. I think it bears repeating that there are Nigerian men and boys also who have been captured, kept in captivity, and used as combatants by Boko Haram. Let me also say that it is very sad that over 2 million Nigerians were internally displaced and hundreds of thousands of Nigerians were made refugees as a result of this conflict. Plus, the highest number of young girls used as suicide bombers was done by Boko Haram. Let's also remember that Boko Haram actually has killed more people than ISIS. Okay, so here's the chapter, and the chapter was radically shortened from a longer piece that I wrote, also with the same title. The title of this chapter is The Chibok Girls, Structural Violence, Gender, and Education in Nigeria's Northeast. According to UNICEF, 30% of Nigerian children aged 6 to 14 do not attend any primary school. The northern region of Nigeria records the lowest attendance rate in the country, particularly for girls. Despite a significant increase in net enrollment rates in recent years, it is estimated that about 10.5 million children of primary school age are still not in school. This is according to UNICEF. And the figure is actually much more today than 10.5 million. In two northern Nigerian states, the gender disparity in education is as high as 1 girl to 3 boys. This is according to UNICEF, its report on Nigeria in 2007. The latest Education for All assessment shows that primary school education has stagnated in Nigeria. This again is according to UNESCO 2014, page 60. Some schools in northern Nigeria have 200 students to one teacher. Nigeria is one of the countries, quote, where the difference in youth literacy rates of out-of-school children in the world and the numbers have increased since 2004 to 2006. Conflict has contributed to some of the increase. At least 20% of Nigerian children of primary school age might not enroll. Nigeria has a female youth literacy rate of just 38%. And these are, of course, very dismal figures. Even those who do not attend school, those who do attend school fail to acquire basic literacy skills because of the poor quality of education. Almost 80% of young people aged 15 to 24 who left school after 5 to 6 years could not read a full sentence. Also, rich boys already complete primary school, but it may be another 3 generations before poor girls do. More distressing still, in Nigeria, while universal youth literacy has almost been achieved for the richest women aged 15 to 24, their poorest counterparts will need to wait 70 years to realize this fundamental right if no active steps are taken to fight illiteracy among the most disadvantaged groups. This is a quote from the UNESCO document. In Nigeria also, quote, only 14% of poor youth are literate compared with 92% of rich youth, from page 209 of the UNESCO document. Another quote, disadvantages in acquiring basic skills are further compounded by a combination of poverty, location, and ethnicity. The outcomes are gendered. Quote, in Nigeria, continuing the quote, only 2% of young women in the Northwest can read, compared with 97% of rich young women in the Southeast. This is page 211 of the UNESCO document. Also, a British Council report on girls' education in Nigeria said the following, quote, many girls fail to make the transition to junior secondary school for a range of educational, economic, and sociocultural reasons. An overage start to school, the onset of puberty, or increased cost of secondary education may all put an early end to girls' education. Girls' low levels of transition and retention in junior secondary schools is becoming an increasing concern because it implies that girls will continue to fail to acquire fundamental life skills, including literacy and numeracy. This is a British Council report from 2014, page 21. According to UNESCO, these outcomes may reflect the combined effects of poverty, isolation, discrimination, and cultural practices. However, they also echo failures of educational policy to provide learning opportunities for the most disadvantaged populations and indicate an urgent need to provide these people with a second chance, unquote, from UNESCO's 2014 publication, page 211. It is no wonder then that UNESCO considers the first 10 years of the 21st century a lost decade for Nigeria on page 60. Therefore, armed conflict worsens the situations in gender-specific ways. I'm going to also give another quote from UNESCO. Of the 28.5 million primary school-age children out of school in conflict-affected countries, 12.6 million live in sub-Saharan Africa. The vast majority, 95%, live in low and lower income countries. Girls, who make up 55% of the total, are the worst affected. Page 55 of UNESCO's 2014 publication. These problems have solutions. There are tried and true practices and policies that have been demonstrated to work in other countries. An example is to prioritize and meaningfully implement policies that equitably redistribute the gains from economic growth. According to the Education for All monitoring report, quote, the benefits of this growth have not yet been fairly distributed. However, Nigeria's economy, for example, grew by at least 5% per year since 2003, but its net enrollment ratio has fallen from 61% in 1999 to 58% in 2010. To guarantee their citizens' rights to education and tap into education's power to transform lives, it is vital that countries put in place strong fiscal policies backed by budget policy reforms to allocate an adequate share of public spending to education and promote equity in its distribution. This is page 116 of Education for All monitoring report. The Chibok girls' abduction, while tragic, was avoidable. The haphazard, uninspiring state response to their rescue epitomizes the entrenched nature of structural violence. Less value is attached to the lives of poor, marginalized Nigerians by both state and society. Those who advocate for equity in state response can be dubbed unpatriotic enemies of the state and their voices suppressed, as was done during the Goodluck Jonathan administration and to a lesser extent by the Muhammad Buhari administration toward the Bring Back Our Girls coalition. There is clear evidence of structural violence in Nigeria. As mentioned above, it produces alienation and repression, negatively impacts survival, wellness, freedom, and identity. It affects the body in physically observable ways and also has invisible but long-lasting effects on the mind and spirit. Lack of conscious formation and mobilization that would have enabled the marginalized populations in Nigeria to organize and struggle against exploitation can also be attributed to structural violence. There is evidence of penetration and the marginalized acting out their belief that their interests are the same as the interests of those who oppress them. There is segmentation because the marginalized have very limited grasp of reality in terms of the forces that oppress them. There is obvious fragmentation because ethnic, regional, religious, gender, and other divisions keep the marginalized people from uniting against their common oppressors. Marginalization excludes them from the benefits of the system while empowering the oppressors to access these benefits as a right. The effects of structural violence make forces like Boko Haram appealing to part of the marginalized population who neither have a stake in the system nor see any prospect of change that would benefit them. Education, gender relations, availability of physical and human security, and access to the benefits of economic growth are all affected. Resistance, when it happens, is sporadic and could be violent. It does not solve the problem because the vertical and horizontal structures that constrain individuals and groups remain, causing the state and its agents to act in a predatory manner toward the marginalized and in a conciliatory manner toward the elites. Redistribution and reorganization of economic, social, and political power in a democratic manner is the solution. But this is a huge challenge, not only in Nigeria, but worldwide. That this is a challenge does not mean that it is impossible. However, great, consistent, tenacious effort must be made to weaken the basis of structural violence. Thank you. I really recommend this book. Here it is, and it is full of pictures and first-hand accounts from the parents of our Chibok girls. The book is going to be launched formally on April 14, I believe, possibly in Nigeria, and maybe also in the UK and the US. Thank you very much. This is a great pleasure. The book was published in 2012 and is available for purchase on Amazon. Thank you.